A paralyzed dog, a rushing river, no one to save him. But wait, what happens next will astound you. Get ready for a tale that defies the odds and redefines hope. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, please subscribe to our channel. Your support is everything to us and allows the heartwarming stories of animals, who often go unheard, to reach a wider audience. It truly helps us continue our mission. So please, hit that subscribe button now. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the tranquil park, but the peaceful scene was about to shatter. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves, while the sound of rushing water from the nearby river grew louder. A small dog, paralyzed from the waist down, sat at the riverbank, his eyes wide with uncertainty. Suddenly, a twig snapped underfoot. In an instant, the dog lost his balance, tumbling down the muddy embankment and plunging into the icy rush of the river. Panic surged as the water swept him away, his back legs useless against the current. The world blurred around him, sharp rocks, swirling eddies, and the relentless push of the water. But even as fear threatened to overwhelm him, something deep within ignited. With sheer determination, he began to paddle with his front legs, fighting against the very force that sought to pull him under. Every stroke was a battle, every gasp for air a defiance against fate. He was alone, surrounded by the chaos of nature, yet an indomitable spirit burned brightly in his heart. Would he find a way to survive, or would this be the end of his struggle? The river roared, the stakes were high, and the clock was ticking. As the paralyzed dog struggled against the icy grip of the river, a small crowd began to gather on the riverbank, drawn by the commotion. People stood in disbelief, their faces a mix of shock and horror, as they watched the brave little creature fight for his life. "Look at him! He's trying to swim!" A woman gasped, her hands clasped to her chest. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, each person fixated on the desperate scene unfolding before them. "I can't believe he fell in," a man said, shaking his head. "He must be terrified." Children pointed, their eyes wide with a blend of fear and fascination. "Why doesn't someone help him?" one little girl exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. But the river was wild, and no one dared to enter the churning waters. With every passing moment, the dog's struggle became more pronounced. His front legs paddled fiercely, splashing water in every direction, yet the current pulled him further away from the safety of the shore. Amidst the crowd, an elderly gentleman stepped forward, his brow furrowed with concern. "We have to do something," he urged, his voice filled with urgency. "That little guy can't hold on forever." But others hesitated, their faces reflecting uncertainty. "What if he gets swept away? We could lose our own lives trying to save him," someone replied, a note of fear creeping into their voice. "It doesn't matter," the old man insisted, his voice rising above the murmurs. "That dog is fighting. We can't just stand here and watch him drown." Meanwhile, the dog's spirit shone even brighter as he sensed the eyes upon him. With every ounce of strength, he pushed against the current, his determination unwavering. He began to maneuver his body, angling himself toward the bank, making small but significant progress. As tension mounted in the air, the crowd began to speculate. "Do you think he's looking for someone? A middle-aged woman pondered aloud. Maybe he's searching for his owner. Others exchanged glances, each theory adding to the emotional weight of the moment. What if he's protecting something? A boy whispered, clutching his toy dog tightly, as if drawing courage from the small plush figure. Maybe he's waiting for help, someone else suggested, their voice barely above a whisper. He knows we're watching. The dog's struggle became a reflection of their own fears and hopes. As he fought against the relentless current, the crowd felt a tug at their hearts, each person rooting for him in silent solidarity. "Come on, buddy! You can do it!" a young man shouted, fists clenched in encouragement. The crowd echoed his sentiments, their voices mingling into a chorus of hope. Suddenly, the dog's front legs found purchase on a submerged rock, and for a brief moment, he steadied himself, gasping for air. The crowd erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by his resilience. But the river was unforgiving. Just as quickly as he found his footing, the current surged again, threatening to pull him back into its depths. Despair washed over some of the onlookers, and gasps filled the air. "Is he going to make it?" a woman cried, her eyes glistening with tears. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to comment from where you are hearing this amazing story. The dog, however, was not finished. With a renewed sense of urgency, he turned his gaze toward the bank, determination blazing in his eyes. He began to paddle harder, his movements becoming more coordinated and fierce. The water splashed around him as he fought against the elements that sought to drown him. And then, in a miraculous twist of fate, the river began to widen, slowing its furious pace. The dog found himself in calmer waters, and the bank was closer than ever. With a final, mighty push, he propelled himself forward, inching his way toward safety. The crowd held its collective breath, the air thick with anticipation. Would he reach the bank? Would he survive? As the dog's front paws scraped against the muddy embankment, the crowd erupted in cheers once again. It was a moment suspended in time, a testament to the spirit of survival. But the battle wasn't over yet. He still needed to make it to solid ground. With one last surge of energy, he clawed his way up the bank, his heart pounding in time with the cheers surrounding him. As his body finally broke free from the water, the crowd rushed forward, their hands reaching out to help him. He lay there, exhausted but alive, the sunlight glistening off his wet fur. The cheers transformed into gasps of relief and joy. People knelt beside him, their faces a blend of awe and compassion, each one eager to lend a hand to the little warrior who had defied the odds. In that moment, the fears and doubts of the onlookers melted away, replaced by a shared sense of triumph. They had witnessed something extraordinary, an unforgettable testament to the power of hope, resilience, and the unwavering will to survive. As the dog caught his breath, he looked up at the faces surrounding him, his heart swelling with gratitude. Though he was paralyzed, he had shown the world that limitations were merely challenges waiting to be conquered. And in that fleeting moment, he had not just survived, he had inspired an entire crowd. As the crowd celebrated the little dog's miraculous escape, a sudden hush fell over the group. From the back, a voice broke through the stunned silence, filled with raw emotion. That dog. He's not just any dog. All eyes turned to a young woman who stepped forward, her hands trembling. She was visibly shaken, her face pale but determined. That's Max. He belongs to my brother, Ethan. He's been missing for weeks. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. The joy of the moment turned into a whirlwind of questions and emotions. Missing, someone echoed. How can that be? The woman's eyes glistened with tears as she continued, her voice breaking. Ethan is a disabled veteran. He loved Max more than anything. Since he went missing, we've searched everywhere. We thought we'd never see him again. In that moment, the crowd's perception of the paralyzed dog transformed entirely. No longer just a victim of circumstance, Max became a symbol of hope, not just for himself, but for his owner, who had faced unimaginable struggles. The people who had once stood by helplessly now felt a deeper connection to the dog and his plight. A man stepped forward, his brow furrowed with concern. What happened to Ethan? How could he just disappear? The woman wiped away a tear, taking a deep breath before answering. He went for a walk one day and never returned. He struggled with PTSD, and we feared he might have wandered off in a state of distress. The crowd exchanged uneasy glances, their initial fear replaced by a sense of urgency. We need to find Ethan, someone shouted, rallying the group. Max could lead us to him. Inspired by the dog's resilience, the crowd quickly mobilized, their hearts swelling with determination. They began to form search parties, their focus shifting from the immediate rescue of Max to the larger mission of finding Ethan. The tide of the narrative had changed. It was no longer simply about survival, but also about reunification. As Max lay on the bank, tired and soaked, he sensed the shift in energy around him. His instincts kicked in, and he began to whine softly, looking in the direction of the path that led deeper into the park. Could he somehow feel Ethan's presence? The young woman knelt beside Max, gently stroking his fur. You know where he is, don't you, boy? She whispered, her voice filled with hope. You can help us find him. With newfound purpose, Max raised his head, his eyes brightening as he began to move forward, his front legs propelling him along the muddy bank. The crowd followed closely, inspired by the bond between the dog and his owner, determined to uncover the truth behind Ethan's disappearance. As they made their way through the dense trees, whispers of encouragement filled the air. You can do it, Max. We're right behind you. Each step taken by the brave little dog seemed to ignite a fire within the hearts of every person present. But the path was not easy. Twigs snapped underfoot, and the terrain became uneven. Max paused now and then, panting heavily but refusing to give up. The crowd mirrored his determination, pushing through their own exhaustion, driven by the hope of finding Ethan. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the air thickened with tension. What would they find? Would they discover Ethan alive and well, or would they be faced with the tragic reality of his absence? Each person grappled with their own fears, but they pressed on, united in their mission. Then, abruptly, Max stopped. He turned his head, ears perked up, as if he had picked up on something. A faint sound carried on the wind. The crowd, sensing a shift, fell silent. They watched as Max strained, his body tense with anticipation. Suddenly, A soft cry echoed through the trees. "Help! Someone, please!" The voice was faint, but it was unmistakable. The crowd exchanged glances, the realization dawning upon them. Could it be Ethan? With renewed energy, Max surged forward, his front legs propelling him with surprising speed. The crowd followed closely, hearts pounding in their chests as they raced toward the sound. They broke through the thick foliage and found themselves in a clearing, the sunlight filtering through the trees. And there, on the ground, lay Ethan, his face pale and etched with exhaustion. "Ethan!" the young woman cried out, rushing to his side. "We found you!" Ethan's eyes fluttered open, confusion quickly giving way to recognition as he saw Max approaching. The paralyzed dog reached him first, nudging Ethan's hand with his wet nose. "Thank you for bringing us back together." The bonds forged in that moment transcended the boundaries of human and animal, reminding everyone present of the profound connections that exist in times of crisis. Together, they had faced uncertainty, and together they had triumphed. Max may have been paralyzed, but he had shown everyone that true strength comes from the heart. And with that, the crowd celebrated not just a miraculous rescue, but the power of love, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. As the crowd erupted in cheers, celebrating the reunion of Max and Ethan, a profound silence lingered in the air, heavy with emotion. The young woman, still hugging her brother tightly, could hardly believe they were together again. Max, exhausted but triumphant, rested his head on Ethan's lap, a silent testament to love and loyalty that transcended any obstacle. "Max, you came for me," Ethan whispered, his voice cracking as he stroked the dog's wet fur. "I knew you'd find a way." The bond between them was palpable, a connection forged through shared struggles and unyielding devotion. But as the initial joy began to settle, a new concern arose. The crowd, still buzzing with excitement, exchanged glances, each person grappling with the reality of Ethan's condition and the toll it had taken on both him and Max. The journey home would not be easy, but they had each other. "Let's get you both some help," the young woman said, her voice filled with both urgency and warmth. "You've been through so much." She turned to the crowd. "Thank you all for being here. You didn't just save Max, you helped us find Ethan. We couldn't have done this without you." The crowd nodded, their hearts swelling with pride and connection. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a moment that transcended individual struggles and highlighted the power of community. Inspired, they began to rally around Ethan and Max, offering assistance, sharing resources, and even organizing a small fundraiser to support Ethan's recovery. As they made their way back through the park, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations brimmed with hope and inspiration, and the crowd felt a sense of purpose. Each person was reminded of the importance of connection, compassion, and the lengths one would go to for those they love. "Max is a hero," someone shouted, and the crowd erupted in applause. It was a fitting tribute to a dog who had defied the odds, but it was also a recognition of Ethan's bravery in facing his own demons. As they reached the parking lot, Ethan's sister looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We'll get through this together. Max needs us, and we need him." Ethan nodded, feeling a rush of gratitude for the people around him and the dog who had saved him in more ways than one. "I've felt lost for so long," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But Max, he brought me back." In that moment, the crowd understood that this story was not just about a paralyzed dog who had survived a treacherous river. It was about resilience, love, and the unbreakable bonds that connect us all. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the park, the crowd slowly dispersed, but not without exchanging hugs and words of encouragement. They had come together as strangers, but they were leaving as a community, strengthened by the experience they had shared. Ethan and Max would face challenges ahead, but they were no longer alone. The journey of healing would be long, but it was filled with hope. They had each other and a newfound support system, a network of caring individuals who had witnessed the miracle of their reunion. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Ethan and Max deepened. They became advocates for awareness about the struggles faced by disabled veterans and their service animals, sharing their story to inspire others. The community that had once gathered by the riverbank now rallied around them, offering resources and support. Through it all, Max thrived, not just as a pet, but as a symbol of hope and resilience. His story resonated far and wide, touching the hearts of many and reminding everyone that even in the face of adversity, there is always a way forward. And so, as Ethan looked down at Max, he felt a surge of gratitude. Together, they had not only survived, but had also sparked a movement of compassion and understanding. If this story has touched your heart as it has ours, be sure to subscribe and share it with others. Every click helps amplify stories of hope and resilience that deserve to be heard. In the end, Max wasn't just a paralyzed dog who fell into a river. He was a beacon of courage, a reminder that love knows no bounds, and that sometimes it takes a leap of faith to bring us home.